This week's episode of Still Untitled is brought to you by the Tested Premium community. The support of Tested Premium members is what allows us to do what we do on a daily and weekly basis, producing shows like Still Untitled, One Day Builds, and our gear reviews. Member support also lets us experiment with new premium shows available on Tested.com. This month, Adam and I build a Blade Runner blaster. Frank teaches us how to paint model kits, and Simone tests some new robot designs. Check out all of our premium content and learn how to be a member at tested.com/premium. Now on with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Norm.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're back in the morning again.
We're back in the
Oh,
morning.
I've
We're
been-
very close to the holidays.
It's freezing cold in here by
Freezing.
California
I think
standards.
This is actually, it may be our final new episode of this year.
Of this year,
Of
yes.
2016.
What, you guys aren't going to come out on Boxing Day and bang one out next week?
I'll be in
I
Portland.
don't want to hear excuses with Savage. Just get it done.
But I've been waiting for this day for a very long time.
So that we can talk about some stuff. So we're going to talk about some media, which is very exciting. It'll be in the title of the
Yeah.
podcast.
It's going to
You
say
know what we're getting
Spoilercast.
into.
Yeah.
I would like to say that my friends Jessica and Leah, who host a wonderful show on BFF.FM called TV on the Radio every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. I often tweet that I'm listening to it, and I've been a guest on it many times. Had their top 10 list yesterday of top 10 television shows.
And that's
this
a tough
year.
list.
How do you do that?
Well, I know.
There are 400 television shows.
They're very, very dedicated watchers. But what I found fascinating is Leah had as number one and Jessica had as number two the O.J. Simpson documentary.
People really liked it. The Netflix thing?
We started watching it last night, and it's
Lifetime.
phenomenal.
This isn't People versus O.J. Simpson.
No,
This is
this
the other
isn't
one.
the
Oh,
Ryan.
oh.
This isn't that one. This is a documentary on O.J. that's hours long. It's
Norm learned something new.
jaw-droppingly fascinating. Really, really amazing. You get to I'm only halfway through the first couple of hours. It seems to be like I come to this podcast woefully unprepared for knowing how long it is, how many episodes, etc. I'm about an hour and a half into it, and I am riveted. And it's talking about OJ, talking about his personality, his relationships, his friends, but also his place within the culture, his place representing African American and white culture and where they meet, how he posited and positioned that, and how people around him thought about it. It's riveting.
I will check it. Where are you watching it? What's it on? Do you know?
I'm watching it on a laptop. This is
internet,
This is me stupidly unprepared.
This is new TV.
Apologies.
Yeah.
But what we're really... go ahead.
Well, I was going to say IO9 did their year-end list, which are always among my favorites.
Yes.
And they had both TV and movies, and they came out in with big love for Supergirl, the CW reboot of not reboot, but update of Supergirl,
and what CW is doing with those DC characters, how it's not dark, how it's very joyful and interesting.
It seems like that's where the DC characters that I love ended up, I didn't know it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
cool.
Anyway,
I haven't watched a lick of it.
The Expanse was number one.
The Expanse is... I'm so glad to hear that. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It's I can't find... does it stream anywhere?
Sci-Fi has some episodes online. Like they did the first episode online.
I could be wrong, but I believe that before season 2 airs, they are going to allow you to stream season 1 so you can get ready.
Oh, good.
But
Okay.
I'm not positive about that.
Because I watched
Do you
like the
have
first
Comcast?
7 episodes, and then but we have a TiVo, so we don't have them. I could use my Comcast app, I
I
guess.
bet it's on there.
Anyway.
I'm glad they said that. Season 2 is going to be even better.
And we can also reveal that you got to be on set because you hosted the special.
Yes, I hosted a half-hour Expanse special, teasing season 2, recapping season 1, and talking about some of the stuff. But I also got to talk to Narain Shankar, the showrunner, and my friends, the James S.A. who make up James S.A. Corey, the author of the books.
I didn't know that when I read the books, that they're an amalgam.
Yes.
Amalgam, yeah. Say amalgam.
So that was
right.
it was really fun. I spent a full week in Toronto on the set,
cool.
getting to walk through the spaceships. They built some really big sets and
For TV.
For TV.
Cable TV.
And let me also say this. I have never been on a set, and I've been on a lot of sets. I've never been on a set of people more unified in their love for what they were making. Everybody from the carpenters and the painters all the way up to the showrunners, all having the same amount of fun, actors included.
That's
just
awesome.
the best.
You're
Yeah,
going to see
so-
a lot of that fun on Tested as well, because we shot a bunch of pieces, and they're going to be slowly rolling out over the next couple of weeks as we lead up to season 2.
And even some cool surprises that will be revealed later in the second season of Expanse on
Can't say
Tested.
anything more than that.
How are they just hewing to the books? Because that's a pretty deep series of books at this point. Or do you know?
It is. Yeah, they're moving around some of the dramatic elements for television. So some characters are showing up earlier than you'd expect, etc. But for the most part, their goal is to maintain rigidly with real science and holding to the books. And I was there with my with the production team, and their goal is to satisfy you as the reader and the watcher.
So speaking of real science in outer space.
Oh God, there's more. Before we get to the segue, there's
That was such a.
I know,
that's
I
my
know,
best
Will.
segue
I know,
ever. It was,
I know.
It was the most ham-fisted Norm segue of all time.
You're not in charge of that.
Where are we going?
Damn it.
Well, we're gonna talk about
You're getting above your station, Will.
La La Land.
La La Land.
Oh man.
I'm here to tell you this is maybe my favorite movie of 2016.
Really?
Whoa, yeah. Now, I know that it's divisive, and like full caveat, if you got to be like me and love the old Vincent Minnelli musicals, the Singing in the Rain and things like West Side Story and,
Bright colors,
bright
break out in
colors,
that dance,
that real
choreography.
old Hollywood musical. La La Land is magnificent.
It's a movie where it celebrates Hollywood, and it's unabashedly in love with itself, like the Hollywood culture.
It is
Or a vision of
a
Hollywood.
vision of
Just
Hollywood
like the artists.
culture. The emotion is not stilted. It feels real. The two actors, which is Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone, are magnificent. It's like there's a reason you hire movie stars to do stuff.
Yeah, they look like movie stars.
I'm always fascinated when a screenwriter paints themselves into a writing corner where, in order for me to really, really connect with this character at this moment, she needs to show me, the audience, that she is truly brilliant at what she does. And then you hire an actress and you hope, boy, I hope she can sell this. Right. And Emma Stone,
she's a safe bet.
with her eyes the size of billiard balls, she is really incredible. And also Ryan Gosling. I keep on meaning to look this up. He's a piano player and she's an actress. He's a jazz pianist and she's an actress. John Legend has a large cameo in the film, and he's wonderful.
Is he playing John Legend?
He's playing a John Legend-esque
Okay.
character, right? A guy with charisma in buckets,
Yeah.
who's just beautiful and wonderful to watch. But he plays the piano throughout the film.
Gosling does.
Yeah, and I found myself wondering, is that
Does he?
really
Yeah.
him, or have they? Because he plays clearly him. Really intense jazz piano, all in single shots.
Is it cheaper to get an actor to go method or to CG that?
I haven't looked it up. I'm sure that I mean I know I can. It's just been a busy week.
Is it? They didn't do obvious cutaways and stuff like that, though, where
No.
you suddenly have a pair of really
no,
different looking hands.
So I will say I did have one bone to pick with the film, which is in a musical like this, you have the choice of are the songs produced in and of themselves, or do they occur within the sonic universe that you're in? And by that I mean Glee did this in both ways. Sometimes in Glee, there's huge amounts of compression on the singing as soon as they jump into a number, right? In this, they went to songs that were in and of themselves. So occasionally, the mix on the vocals of the songs in La La Land is so low because it's more like within.
Do you think that was the theater you were in, maybe?
It could have been the theater I was in.
And the rule for musicals when they're brought to screen is usually it's all ADR after the fact. I think Les Mis was
and
one of
this
the
is
very
clearly,
few.
right?
that is recorded.
Unlike Les Mis, which
Yeah.
they did all live on camera. This was absolutely post-produced, and some of the lip syncing was not so perfect.
Right.
But honestly, the
is that
emotion.
reference-
But you're
the
talking
time,
about
though?
the directorial decision of whether you're breaking the song out of the reality of where the characters exist.
So they do both in this film, and but basically the choices that they made sometimes took me out of the drama here and there. That being said, really, like I want to I want to choreograph a soft shoe routine that my wife and I can do when we're especially excited and just like dance with each other on the road. Mandy Moore did the choreography, by the way.
Really? So some of the songs are diegetic, right? They're happening in the world and they're just picking up. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's always interesting because that's one of my favorite musical tropes is the old Rodgers and Hammerstein style. All of a sudden, oh, it's time for the musical number. Everybody just starts dancing.
And that happens in this. It's just great. I mean, really, look, I'm one of the people that thinks that Singing in the Rain is one of the best movies ever made.
Yeah.
And if you have any inkling towards that, you're gonna love this movie.
Okay.
You've got to give over to the mannerist, painterly aspects of a real musical where the colors are all primary and it's great.
So I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer for that before Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, this would have been an amazing movie for Neil Patrick Harris, who is a old-timey song and dance man in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But Ryan Gosling is an amazing performer.
I don't think Neil Patrick Harris can smolder
I will
like that.
look,
Maybe not.
Ryan
That's entirely
Gosling-
possible.
Ryan Gosling.
You never think Neil Patrick Harris is going to bash somebody's head in.
Don't forget, Gosling's a Mouseketeer.
What?
He comes with real chops in the singing and dancing
What?
department.
Is he like Britney Spears or a Mouseketeer?
Yeah, JT, Justin Timberlake. Yeah. Gosling starts out.
My mind is completely blown.
From Mouseketeer to possible replicant.
Holy hell.
Yeah, man. So
Okay,
he's actually
I rescind my comment and
He's
question.
a phenomenal dancer. There's a scene early on in the film where they meet and they're walking on the road and they just start dancing with each other. And I'm getting choked up just thinking about how beautiful it is because of how well choreographed the dancing is, how well they do it, how personal and not stilted it is. It's just great.
A few weeks ago, you asked where the romantic comedies went. And,
Bingo.
And
Yeah.
like this
you
fits. I think the other thing people said was check Lifetime. So like those Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of romantic comedies on Hallmark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So there you go.
Fascinating. But La La Land, again, your results may vary, but that is the kind of movie I'm a total sucker for. And the casting all the way down the line is brilliant.
Excellent.
Hey, you got the new trailers for Blade Runner also.
I haven't seen it
You
yet.
haven't seen it? Okay, it's a very small tease. And this is the point where you can decide whether you want to see trailers or not see trailers.
I think. Look, I'm in a position professionally now where I don't feel an urge to watch trailers.
Yeah.
Joey Fameli, longtime producer on Tested, has for a long time not watched any trailers for anything, and he's gone out of his way for it. I'm not going to do that. But if I can avoid seeing trailers, I'm not going to close my eyes in the theater.
Right? Or like not get there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of the reasons you reserve seats, so you don't have to watch the trailers.
Well, so like I'm not going to close my eyes during the
Right.
trailers in the
Right.
theater, but I'm totally fine not going out on the internet and finding trailers the day they come out and waiting until the movie comes out.
I don't mind watching. So I actually now have a very specific policy. I don't mind watching the first trailer or something
first
because
teaser.
it's
Yeah.
usually doesn't give you a lot to go on. But on sites like Gizmodo and IO9 where they really start to take a trailer
And break it
look
down.
at every single shot of multiple trailers to break the plot down, and they're often really right.
Yeah.
I stopped. Here's your segue. I stopped watching the Rogue One trailers a month and a half ago. I just stopped. I wanted to be really surprised, and I didn't want to have a lot of stuff anticipated to me.
There's usually teaser 1, then trailer 1, theatrical trailer 1, theatrical trailer 2, under 2 minutes and 30
And then some
seconds.
TV trailers and stuff
then
like that,
TV
too,
stuff
yeah.
and international stuff.
Internationals where a lot of
That's
the
exactly.
interesting spoilers come out.
But it's always fun to go back and
Yeah.
watch how they marketed the films. And one of the best messages I got over the weekend, and it was from Joey, who did not know much about Rogue One going into it, and said, Donnie Yen's in this movie?
I love Donnie Yen in this movie. Let's talk about Rogue One.
No, we've gone
so-
for a whole 15 minutes.
This
it's
is
like
a
tantric
Spoilercast?
podcasting.
What's
All
that?
let's do
This
it.
is a spoiler
This is
cast.
it.
It will be a spoiler
We
cast.
will give you a warning when
We
we're
will
going to
give
cross
you a
the point
warning.
of spoilers.
No.
Yep.
Well, I think we should dive right into it. We gave
Whoa.
them 15 minutes of
Oh.
podcast.
Well, but I think we should.
No,
I think we should.
let's spend
Okay.
3 minutes
All right.
talking
3
about
minutes.
it in 5 minutes talking about it in general.
7 minutes talking about it. Okay, Rogue One.
All prime numbers. Only prime
Yes.
number lengths of minutes.
So if we go 3 more, it's going to be a real long podcast. It's a movie about the original capture of the Death Star plans, which has not been depicted or even really mentioned on film before.
2 lines.
It was in
And this
Dark
is-
Forces. It was the video game. Was the main representation of this in the past.
And this was an idea that John Knoll, creative director at ILM and special effects director of many films, including Oscar winner for Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest,
and the Minority Report hands.
Minority Report hands.
Yes.
Yeah, John Knoll, a good friend of mine, friend of Tested.
He came up
had
with
this
the idea
of like, what about a movie that takes place that shows how the Death Star plans were obtained?
I don't think that's giving him enough credit, because while John Knoll has a story credit, what he actually did was come up with a 7-page treatment called Destroyer of Worlds, and he as a part of the Lucasfilm family and the Star Wars family, pitched that to Kathleen Kennedy, and it was fully fleshed out. It wasn't just, hey, let's turn this into a movie, because people have said, I've always been curious how they get the plans. But he had a full story about and a vision about how to make a commando war film about the spies that stole the Death Star plans. And while the film that we eventually got up is maybe not so much like that story, he actually had those ideas, and it was very much like the Guardians of the Galaxy, actually, but in the Star Wars universe.
First and foremost, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Star Wars movie that's come out since 1983.
It's really, really great. I enjoyed the spit out of it. I enjoyed how much it subverted some of my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed how much...
that's an interesting point about expectations, because this is the first film first Star Wars film that's not a Star Wars film.
Right, that has none of the characters you've ever met.
It doesn't have a crawl.
One or two characters, no crawl.
That's right. It's a Star Wars story, and it's set in that universe, but it is not a episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, so I'm going to make an admission here, and even though I said I try not to watch the trailers, and I didn't watch any Rogue One trailers for the last month and a half, I did give in, and I on Wednesday it said, "What are the reviewers saying about Rogue One?" And I just wanted to see those one paragraph encapsulations.
Yeah, like Rotten Tomatoes.
And they were so different, each one, that I was like, "Oh, I'm fascinated to see this," because clearly what when I see reviewers widely disagreeing with each other about how they felt about a movie, I feel like what that tells me is that a lot of people are going in with very specific expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It's less about the quality of the movie than the quality of the expectations of the review.
Or that the movie is just incredibly dense, which
dense,
is, I think,
or different than And so I was pleasantly surprised when I went in. First of all, I'm going to say, whether you like it or not, this is a really well put together movie.
Yeah.
The script is great. The performances are all great. The action is fantastic. The effects are wonderful.
And I think it plays a lot of tribute to it is how you remember Star Wars in a way, without trying to become something completely different visually.
Up to and including some of the sets looking kind of janky, like
the
original
lived-in world.
77.
Yeah.
Some of the effects looking a little bit janky.
And that's not to say The Force Awakens didn't have that. The Force Awakens, they built a great Millennium Falcon. They built a great Jakku, a lived-in world.
Yep.
But it did have a kind of clean, a polish to it.
It was minimal. Like the what we saw of Jakku was basically a tiny outpost, presumably somewhere on the edge of the world.
Yes.
But there was like 30 or 40 buildings is what it felt like. It was small.
Right.
What we saw here were these dense, lived in worlds, cities, places where people live their entire lives. And it felt much more like it was much more reminiscent of Luke and Ben and the droids walking through Mos Eisley on Tatooine.
I agree. Yeah.
And
you were in a world. You were in a world.
So other departures. It was the first Star Wars that doesn't have a John Williams score.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael Giacchino.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Michael Giacchino. So I will admit to you that Michael revealed to me a couple of movements before the film came out, and the score is beautiful and has all these wonderful little tips of the hat to Williams scores.
Yeah. Well, and like they drop he manages to use the Williams references without feeling like he's hitting a soundboard. He's like, okay, Darth Vader's on screen, play the Imperial March. He does it once.
Yep.
It's very deliberate.
Yeah, totally.
You get that one riff, and then it goes away, and it goes back to
Ben Mendelsohn gets his own sort of dark Imperial
His
theme.
is so good.
We've gone 3 minutes, guys.
Okay. So
All right.
let's go. We're going
watch the
full
film.
Advice.
Go watch the
full
film.
spoiler.
Go watch New Hope before you go watch this.
Yes,
That's my advice.
No, it's a great point.
At least the first act. It doesn't matter if you watch the
Yeah.
whole movie.
You should watch A New Hope before you watch this if you have the time. And if you really have the time, I actually encourage you to watch Episode 3 and A New Hope.
I encourage
wow.
no one to ever watch any of the prequels again.
If you're going to watch Episode 3, I recommend that you watch it in French with English subtitles, because dialogue that bad is actually much more palatable if you're reading it rather than hearing people butcher it.
You almost got your first Still Untitled spit take on that one.
That's great.
It's a real burn there. Okay, so Spoilercast starts right now.
Okay, I mean, yeah,
Holy shit.
Holy shit, Grand Moff Tarkin was terrible.
terrible.
So
I mean,
wait,
no. Let's take it back. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of CG characters, and if we want to start with Tarkin, we can, because that is a piece of not exactly fan service. It served the point of this being a direct prequel to the film.
It totally did.
And there are things that happen in Episode 4. You can't just have a whole new commander of the Death Star. You got to have some of these characters,
Understood, yeah,
like Vader and Tarkin. And it
and so
wasn't
this
as
film
bad.
did this very bold thing that hasn't been revealed in the press up till very
Now,
recently,
yep.
which is they brought Peter Cushing back from the dead and make him a actually major character in this
major
movie.
character,
Yeah.
an antagonist to the antagonist, which
He's
as a
sparkly.
conceptual,
Yeah.
like you had the villain of the film have his own nemesis.
So
Well,
I
he-
will say I sat and watched this with my friend Steven at the Alamo Draft House on Friday, and every time Grand Moff Tarkin was on screen, Steven turned to me and went, Polar Express.
Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't Beowulf.
here's
I mean, we've gone a long way with Jeff Bridges and
Paul
Tron.
Walker in Furious 7 last year was great.
We still are in
Mostly.
the uncanny. We're still heavily in the uncanny valley when it comes to this stuff. And there were just little. Look, there were lots of shots of Grand Moff Tarkin that were absolutely spot on. But the performance, there's a lot of performance.
They required a
stuff that-
performance.
Did you guys watch
Absolutely.
3D or 2D?
I
Both.
watched 3D.
So I watched 2D,
Yeah.
and I didn't think there were places that it definitely leapt out at me, like the initial
So you
reveal.
think 2D was
he's a
better
little
than
sparkly,
3D? Yeah, he's a little sparkly.
but I think with the 3D, it may have been a little bit more pronounced and more
And
noticeable.
when you talk about the
Interesting.
technical sparkly,
Did you find that?
So it's tough to say because I watched the second time in 2D, so
Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
what to expect. It wasn't as jarring, and in 3D,
Right.
like, yeah, there's Uncanny Valley. Whenever he turns, the animations were great, but we're talking about a film that needs to look in your head like how the old
Right,
films were
right,
shot,
right.
which were on film, and they shot this one digitally, so they had to work with the CG with how the film was shot. So you combine all these elements, I still think it's effective as a character.
You're right.
Like
You're
the-
right. You're
like-
right. I didn't mean to lead
Like-
with it's terrible, but it ended up bugging me.
the thing about it is the film is better for Tarkin being an on-screen presence.
I totally agree with you.
even
on
if
that
the
front.
effect is
You're
kind of
absolutely right.
janky.
You're absolutely right.
But it's better than if they recast it, and it's better than if they had just done heavy makeup, which
And-
may have looked more practical, but it comes across as, okay, it's Tarkin.
So I have also heard. Let me just say, I've also heard from friends on the production that Lucas really likes this film.
I wouldn't surprise me.
And one of the reasons I think that he likes it, like when I heard that, I thought, what's unique about this? Oh, the bringing Peter Cushing and putting him in. So Lucas is an innovator. He loves
Yeah.
the new, the crazy, the outlandish technology being put into the service of a story. That struck me as something that he was probably very glad that they tried.
But they
and
didn't do it
pushed
for the
forward.
sake of doing
No,
it. It's
they
not
totally
because,
didn't. No.
we have digital cameras now, let's shoot episode 1
At 1080p.
in 1080p.
You're absolutely
It was
right.
because, okay, we've done this with Tron, we've done this other films,
And-
let's
and-
feel like, can we do it? Yeah, let's do it.
And I don't want to denigrate them for trying it. Like I said, it pulled me out of the plot several times, but
So how'd you
we
think
live
about
in an
Leia?
age where this should be done. People should be trying to move the needle of what's possible.
I
So-
thought Leia was much more noticeable as the thing progressed.
Really? I
yeah,
love
but I had just watched the movie the night before.
Leia. I mean, because she's only there at the very end. I thought
still
it was
sparkly.
much better.
Oh no, I didn't. I disagree.
Still
I thought
sparkly.
it took me way sparkly.
I
way
was
sparkly.
so excited.
She
when
looked
they
like
had
a
that
Force
Leia
ghost
moment.
almost.
Okay, so to be clear, they make Carrie Fisher young again, and they bring Peter Cushing back.
And it
from the
wasn't
dead.
Carrie Fisher. It was they had a body double, and then they just CG the face.
So they
Right,
get somebody
on
with the
a
same
body
bone
double.
structure and map it to their
Yeah.
face is the theory.
Yeah.
The thing that I will say is that the Peter Cushing and the Princess Leia, and then they also did it with a bunch of other people that are kind of background characters. Like
So they did it to 2 characters, and this was the huge.
I'm
I'm
wanted
talking about
in 3
CG.
systems.
Well, yeah, you're right. So they.
I think that was makeup.
Yeah,
I think most of them
yes.
were practical
So
or
this is fascinating.
shots from the
they
old
had,
movie.
Yeah, the fan service elements of it and bringing back the old characters. They did it in 3 ways. You had Leia and Tarkin.
Yeah.
And they're all pairs. Very interesting. And the Leia and Tarkin were completely CG
Yeah.
mapped onto body doubles as characters. Then they had I forget
Rogue
their names.
Leader and Gold.
the
Walrus face and
yes,
the
Walrus
I
face
want it
and-
on 12 systems.
Right, they had those as completely recast
Yeah.
and makeup because those were makeup
Yeah.
effects characters,
Yeah.
and had those brought back. And then they had Red Leader and Gold Leader, which was archival footage cropped around and put in new CG.
And I think
That
they
I didn't
re-recorded
realize.
some
I
lines.
was, it's very,
And they added to the line. So when Red Leader says, "I'm ready to do my attack run," and they cut right when
It's Gold Leader.
I'm ready to do my attack run, and they cut to say onto the shield generator. And they added the line in, but they used the original dialogue and meshed it in. That if you in interviews with the director Gareth Edwards, he says finding the archival footage when they visited Lucasfilm Archives and saying, what are those film reels there? Oh, that's just extra Star Wars footage. What?
Gosh.
Unscanned? Okay, let's scan it. Finding those test shots and then putting that in the film and having those are the biggest cheers, I thought.
And here's the thing that I really enjoyed getting to the end of the movie and realizing, wow, this movie ends literally like 40 minutes before Star Wars New Hope begins.
No one expected that.
Yeah, it was like that. So the thing that I was going to say about Tarkin and Leia is they stood out because the blend between practical and digital effects was so good in the rest of the film
I
that
agree.
it was like you couldn't tell where the real words stopped and the digital effects ended. So when you saw those faces, it just leapt out of the screen at me. Anyway,
and even to the Star Destroyers, when we're talking about they use the effects to how you remember it, the way they designed the AT-AT walkers. Or if you compare a screenshot of the AT-ATs in Empire and the AT-ATs they have in this movie, which are a little different because they're cargo AT-ATs.
Well, these are the crappy predecessors, I assume, right? They learned from this battle to make them better for Empire.
They're fundamentally different. They are sleeker, but they're how you remember it in your brain.
When it moves right?
Yeah.
Like it moves at like 12 frames a second.
I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'd like to go back and talk about main performances.
And the story.
And the
main
story.
Yeah.
I thought that Felicity Jones as Jin was fantastic.
And you know why? It's because they made the story about her and they made it personal.
Yeah.
And this was the fundamental difference between the John Knoll pitch, which was about a team of commandos and each having like a very Seven Samurai type of film, to one about a personal story of the hero's journey, Jyn Erso, and her relationship with her father.
And her father, Mads Mikkelsen, was terrific.
really, really like I was on the edge of bawling within the first 4 minutes of the movie.
Both fathers, right?
Absolutely. And really, like, I love a movie that starts late into the action and puts you right into the middle of it. And boy, and they really, really do that. I also thought, well, the one that I'm holding back that was maybe my favorite character in the film was
K2SO?
Alan Tudyk.
K2SO.
Oh my God.
K2SO.
So him and Bodhi, the tie it's like, I don't know. They're both amazing characters. I want more from.
Here's the thing is, I've often said, and I said this on the podcast, I think one of the big differences between the original Star Wars films and the prequels is that the prequels have no real sense of humor. And
that's right.
In the Star Wars films, you have Harrison Ford, and to a lesser extent C-3PO.
Humor, you mean a self-awareness.
Self-awareness and making fun of the absurd. Look, these movies are absurd. Let's be clear. They're totally absurd. So you need someone in the middle going, this is freaking absurd.
And he literally, K2SO says that.
Yeah.
Says almost that. He steals every scene. And you're right, because
Did
Jar
you know
Jar
that wasn't me?
was an attempt of humor, but it was slapstick.
It was slapstick and way off the mark.
And here, K2SO is the audience, but also just the ability to do a sassy robot.
And not just
but a dry, sassy robot.
And not only was the writing great, like that character was funny just on paper. And then Alan Tudyk got a hold of it and shook a whole bunch of extra crap out of it. This comic timing of, I can survive in space.
Oh, right.
Like,
right.
And just outright guffaws.
Well, and then writing it all the way down.
He
like
puts
oh
the joke
my
to the
God.
logical end. Or when it's like, fine, I'll stay here, and it just drops the gear. Yeah. But it has an emotional climax, too, when he's given the gun by Jyn and says, Jyn Erso, you continually surprise me.
Right.
And they have their moment.
Yeah.
And I think he's the first one of the team that dies.
Oh, yeah,
It's
he's
when
the first
you
one.
first realize.
That was really intense, too,
when
by
you
the
realize,
way.
whoa,
So
this is happening.
Going into
this is happening.
My assumption was, since these were all new characters we hadn't seen in Star Wars before, they were all doomed from the beginning.
See, I didn't.
Apparently,
hadn't
this is not
that.
a common thought.
No, apparently you're a little bit of a misanthrope, Will.
Look, I've been to a few movies, Adam.
But also,
I know how this works.
it's a Disney film. So I think, I expected people to die, but even though my brain knew it was going to happen, I still wanted, like, okay, maybe it can happen. Maybe one will survive. Well, and it one by one, to the very end, when they were watching the explosion, I'm like, oh, it's really going to happen.
Yeah,
they don't have to make
They kill
sequels.
everybody off.
They don't have to make a sequel for this because it's already, it's already done. They're going to re-release the original trilogy as they were originally intended to be seen, and it's amazing to watch $100+ million movie, $150 million movie, whatever it is, that there's no cliffhanger, that there's no to be continued.
And I found that really, really lovely. I found that fantastic. The sacrifice for a greater good, the
Thank goodness that Kyber crystal wasn't just was a red herring and not a lampshade element.
Well, and
What's a lampshade element?
Like she has it, her mother gives it to her in the beginning, and thank goodness she didn't whip it out at the end. Like, this is going to charge the satellite.
This is the way I'll defeat the Skeksis.
No,
I'm sure there's a version of the script that had that. So the thing that amazed me is that you go through this whole movie, and the whole first half of the movie is there a real super weapon? Is this like people don't believe it's real?
Right.
There's no sense of urgency, and then all of a sudden, as soon as it becomes clear that this is a thing that exists and it can actually blow up planets, they treat it with the urgency that a weapon that can blow up planets should engender, and everybody gets on board, and they do the suicide mission.
Yeah.
Which is something
you get a sense of how desperate and how under-equipped the rebellion is.
Right. Yeah.
And
you really do.
And how scrappy and how even amongst themselves they are not a unified.
They can't agree to go.
rebellion
And that also I
alliance.
found really cool. I loved the casting of Mon Mothma, who turns out to, I realized a third of the way into the film, is the blind wife in Episodes. She's the wife of the TV producer that Matt LeBlanc has an affair with.
You know, she was also Mon Mothma in episode 3, deleted scene.
Oh, she.
Yeah.
So, and she had aged appropriately since they shot episode 3.
As had Jimmy Smits.
And Jimmy Smits, like, it's one of the reasons I'd say people watch episode 3, because you have elements like Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa coming back, which I, even though you don't like, I love Jimmy Smits, and I think he's great in Rogue One. And you also have Vader. We got to talk about Vader. He makes 2 appearances in the film, and he was revealed in the trailer. He was they used him in one of the TV spots in one of the last trailer as like, you got to buy tickets because Vader's in this. He is used to perfect effect, and we talked about the score and how they didn't waste all of the John Williams score, just like scatter it throughout. They bring it in at the right times. Same with Vader. And I think one of the reasons this film, and I'm not saying the film is perfect. There are parts of the film that maybe are a little clunky. I know they did reshoots, like the Saw Gerrera part isn't concluded well.
Saw Gerrera is such a good character, though.
He is, but not really but regardless of that, I think one of the reasons people walk out of this movie feeling so strongly about it is because it ended on such a great note with the Vader fight. And
the Vader fight where Vader is
intimidating, walking,
absolutely terrifyingly mowing his way through a bunch of rebels.
And you don't ever see that. Like you
never. You hear about it, and you get a sense of it.
No, you only ever see him fight other Jedis, and you see him defeat Han Solo in Empire.
But when he pulls all the blasters out of those poor rebels' hands,
and then
it's just like
throwing
time
them
to
at
start
the
sorting.
So you can call back to episode 2 when they did the Yoda crazy, Muppet flying around, and it's the same effect, right?
Yeah.
I remember watching that in theaters and people going crazy when Yoda cheered when Yoda brought out a lightsaber.
Ping pong Yoda.
Right. And it was, but in retrospect, they didn't need Yoda to go crazy. They did it because they had CG. Here, it's measured, and I think they had that in their review mirror.
I think Yoda fighting the way Yoda fought was important for Yoda because you needed to see Yoda as a force-powered badass at some point in his arc. But this
look, I agree that was very satisfying. I loved that they went with the deep red lenses of the original Star Wars. It felt very much like I'm looking at the Star Wars Vader with the helmet. He hadn't
gotten the new helmet yet.
Not super shiny.
The Bacta tank.
So that's the first scene.
His base on Mustafar, presumably.
It was Mustafar.
Is like the fact that he goes back to where he was born, to make his hidden lair, to like have his me time with his boys.
So that's something that our friend Gary actually brought to the script.
Really?
Was Vader's temple, which they had in the original Ralph McQuarrie drawings, the idea that Vader has a castle. And what they brought was that Vader...
it looked like Isengard.
It looked like from Lord of the Rings.
You gotta bring the helmet someplace.
Totally. But the fact that it's at the end of a lava channel, and it takes this chaotic lava energy and then puts it into this waterfall of lava. And the fact that it's a place where he can be vulnerable, because Vader doesn't have arms and legs. Right. So he's in his Bacta jar, and I think they called it like the Vader spa, right? But a place where he's guarded, right? He's guarded by 2 red guards, and he looks, while he's in the jar regenerating, looking at the place where he was born. Like, that's a powerful thing. And then you have this great scene with him and Krennic, where Krennic gets put in his place, and you have the power the organizational structure reestablished.
The audience, when he does the little choke on Krennic and says, "Don't choke on your own aspirations."
That one though.
I loved it.
Vader doesn't need puns.
I found it a little bit cheesy, but the whole crowd that I was watching it with broke into applause.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So that and the only two places that I kind of were that and the Jen speech to the Rebel Council,
which that was the thing that felt out of place.
It was like she didn't seem like as a character she was ready to make that speech yet.
I agree.
I agree. And
but I didn't care.
She sold it, and I love the bit where she's talking to the guys, and they're all actually wearing like World War II helmets.
Oh yeah.
Oh, casting in this film. Marvelous. The mustaches, the old 70s British
God, the mustaches.
I mean, Blue Leader is my hero. He dies in the film, but he chuckles. He has like that World War II pilot look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, you get to see Donnie Yen do some beautiful martial arts.
Okay. So that whole arc, that those two characters have, is he just some crackpot that they picked up along the way to
a temple guard? He was a
I understand,
right.
But
so both of those guys, they were both temple guards. They were both guardians of the wills, but one had lost his faith. Blaze,
the guy with the gun.
Yeah, the guy with the gun.
That's a cool gun, by the way.
Cool. Why doesn't everybody have those kinds of blasters?
It's the Star Wars equivalent of the Aliens minigun.
It's an LMG.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
There you go. You're totally right.
Which you never see in Star Wars, and he had to charge it up for the one shot. But their relationship of these two characters, and like they're Asians in film that never get represented, like. They have this romance and bromance.
Their relationship also felt very Kurosawa.
That was
and that I really liked, because if you're a student of the Star Wars films, you already know this, but Lucas used a lot of Kurosawa in Star Wars. C-3PO and R2-D2 are Kurosawa characters.
Yeah.
And
Fortress.
that's in the DNA of Star Wars, and those guys felt completely natural being popped in there.
Well, without needing to use exposition to tell their backstory.
Right.
You get it to the end, just when their relationship.
Well, that's it, and it's another place that they use to highlight the uncertainty of the time. Is Darth Vader a real thing? The people don't kind of know yet, right?
Right.
Is the Force still a real thing, or is it just some religion that people focus? Because it's been 20 years, and we know how quickly you can forget things in 20 years.
Yeah.
So like you see, as the audience, you see him go from, is he a crazy guy, to, oh right, he has the Force.
What did you guys think about the environments of the film?
Everything was amazing.
Because there were four major environments. You had the home planet with the farming, the moisture farming.
Iceland,
essentially. Then you had Jeddah. And
Jeddah was beautiful. And what is the Jewish city on the rock?
Where you have the
Masad, not Masad. It's Masada.
With the sculptures carved into the mountains.
God, this is terrible that I can't remember this.
We're Americans. We're not supposed to know geography.
It was made into a big mini-series.
If you want to talk about Star Wars planets, I can hook you up. But
and then you have Edu.
Edu was the
military installation.
The place where Jen's father bought it.
And then finally, Yavin, I guess. Yavin 4, and then Scarif.
Yeah, so Yavin 4 was ripped straight from my childhood memories of what I assume are like bases on the back lot of Pinewood. The Jeddah is the highlight, I think, for me. Because the
Masada is, I believe, what Jeddah was based upon, because it effectively looks almost identical.
So seeing an archipelago was interesting.
Yep.
For the first time in an archipelago planet, but Jeddah, the density of that world and the way that it kind of captured what I, as having never been to a market in the Middle East, assume markets in the Middle East feel like.
Yeah.
It was neat. The street ambushes and all that stuff worked really
With
well.
The fallen giant statues that were the landscape.
That was really cool.
Well, and it also had the tense, because of the score, I think a lot of it had the kind of the tense feeling that I would expect an occupied city to have.
And again, when you talk about the score, I love the way Giacchino uses the DNA of Williams without ever overtly copying, or the brief quotes that kept on letting you know you were in a safe space, yet giving you a brand new Star Wars score.
It could have been karaoke if it was done poorly, and it was executed. He did the same thing with the Star Trek score. I don't know why we're surprised. He captured the nuance of the original Star Trek music, both and brought it into this new franchise.
I really love that the environments felt like they were filled with things from Star Wars, but they didn't feel they were different.
Yeah.
The stormtrooper doll.
I mean, just like in Iceland,
right.
having
Really
it be
far out.
having it be windy with green grass, it looked gorgeous, and it didn't look like anything we'd seen in Star Wars before.
No. Well, and so they did. The screenwriters and Gareth Brown did the thing where they referenced the old movies without like saying, "Hey, look, guys, there's this thing over here."
Totally.
You know, like it was just clearly made by people who love Star Wars and know Star Wars, but didn't need to go back and explain why the Kessel Run took 12 parsecs instead of an amount of time.
Right.
Right. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just it was a deft touch to everything.
And you had the kind of the core elements of a Star Wars film. You had the kind of confused hero's journey through a marketplace, right? The way they paced it, where Jyn Erso, she's not a devoted rebellion fighter, right? She's kind of like ambivalent
in the same way Han Solo was in the beginning in the first
her
movie.
Mission, and Luke, her mission is not clear to her, and so their environment reflects that, where she's kind of like wandering through the Jeddah and like, what am I doing here? And then like in the murky, the rainy Edo, and then it becomes this bright, lush war zone. So you have like the classic three things going on in the finale with the sky battle, like a war, and then the infiltration, just like in Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that thing.
But it was executed better than anything else we've seen.
And the last third of the battle's really fantastic. Oh my God. Really, really amazing.
Well, and somehow, so that was the place that I became to love the pilot. The guy who gets the brain slug tentacle monster treatment.
Bodhi.
And like that was when I was like, oh right, the balance of action in this has been really, really good. Like it doesn't have that Marvel thing where you're like, there's going to be a big scene in the open, and then there's going to be a fight that they lose, and then there's going to be them talking about how to win, and then they're going to win. This felt much more organic and much more real. And the moment in the theater for me when K2SO, like people sighed in the theater, so like, oh, okay, somebody's dead. We're cool now. Right.
Yeah.
And then it just went worse and worse and worse as it progressed.
K2SO dying was very hard to take and very sad. But I also loved the fact that it's the first time I've seen in a Star Wars movie that a robot should be able to shoot at somebody without looking. I love that K2SO is sitting there talking to them and just shooting stormtroopers off to the side.
Well, we haven't
and
seen...
Cassian, when he hears K2SO die, you feel it too. K2SO is his Chewie.
Yeah.
Right? And you get that in one film.
Yep.
So
a character introduced less than 90 minutes ago.
Cassian, Cassian had the intro to Cassian when he's meeting that informant.
Right.
And he's like, they have to run, the stormtroopers are coming. He's like, well, I got to kill this guy because I got no choice. He's going to rat me out.
Yes.
Like,
the morally
pause,
ambiguous. Yes.
Very intense.
Like, right. That was more morally ambiguous than anything Han Solo's ever done.
I totally agree. Well,
right?
It's shooting Greedo.
Greedo's a scumbag, though. This guy's on their side.
Yeah, no, it's totally true.
But it's in the facial expression.
Yeah.
Right.
When he says, they are spies, saboteurs, and assassins, and that's...
And Diego Luna did an amazing job at riding that fine line of the moral ambiguity, not pulling the trigger on
Jyn Erso's dad, Galen Erso.
Yeah.
And then the speech that he gives when the rebellion looks like it's going to break up and run for cover, and he's like, look, we've done horrible shit. If we walk away now, we're unredeemed.
Right.
And like
totally true.
Like that to me totally recovered the Jyn Erso scene at the council in a way that I kind of wasn't expecting quite so quick. I was like, oh man, okay.
I totally agree.
It bears rewatching.
You've already seen it twice.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going to see it again. I'm thrilled by this movie. I'm thrilled by how different it is than all the other 8 films.
Different and yet familiar.
Yeah.
And making it a capsule gives it the opportunity to do things that would be impossible. Like if at the end of episode 7 they had murdered Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie and R2-D2 and C-3PO, like they would have just pissed away $4 billion.
It gave them a lot of narrative freedom too, because they're not having to tease. I read something where it said, if you didn't like the second Avengers, Age of Ultron, just think about having to introduce 14 new characters, a fight scene every 25 minutes, and you've got to tease 8 other films.
Yeah.
As this is just that will make this movie feel heavily laden, and this one felt very light on its feet.
And one last thing I want to end with is, as I was watching this film, I would think back to episode 4, and this is why you should watch episode 4.
Yeah.
And you think back at Luke's trench run. And in Luke's trench run, he's doing it for himself. It's his hero's journey. But having this film exist now, Rogue One, his trench run,
it puts it in context.
It puts it in context. It makes it so much more meaningful.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Somebody said, I don't know why you need to have a whole movie to find out where the hole on the spaceship is. It's at the end of the trench. You just find the trench and fly to the end. I was like, well, maybe, but if you dig a 3-foot hole in the middle of the median on I-40 and you're like, well, go find it. It's there somewhere. Well, also, we're going to be shooting at you the whole time.
It answers the question asked in Thumb Wars, which was, fortunately, they included a button that blows the whole thing up. Why would they do that? I don't know. Beats me. I would have left that part out.
Yeah.
It was an inside job all along.
I was
just a really, really lovely, good, solid fun movie.
And you saw what the money is on the screen, right?
Yeah,
they spent a ton of money on it, and it looks like it. So
I love this new Star Wars universe, and I don't just mean the standalone films, but I also mean the creative collaborations, the looking for plots and worlds to build outside the main arc of Star Wars. It is a harbinger of excellent things to come.
And it doesn't feel gratuitous.
No.
Cool.
I think that's as good a place.
We're not going to do any better than that. We'll see you guys
Merry
after the New
Christmas,
Year.
Happy Hanukkah,
holiday.
Happy New Year, Happy Festivus.
It's for the rest of us.
The airing of grievances and the feats of strength.
Maybe we should do that.
That comes next week.
Yeah, I think so.
It's just an hour and a half of Norm.
Absolutely. Flexing.
Okay. Norm, anything? What should people look for? What are you
Oh my
doing
God, we have a lot. I mean, we're ending the year really strong. We had just this week Adam's visit to the Lion King musical. We have some stuff. We have actually a new one-day build that Adam did last week with Michael Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to pop on the site this week. And all our favorite things next week.
All right.
Excellent. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.